Yang attends swimming lessons regularly with his father and feels happier than ever. Meanwhile, Poo grows increasingly worried as her little brother's condition worsens. After his wife's death, even though it was part of his plan, Dongxing feels an overwhelming emptiness. He isolates himself at home, no longer caring about anything, and even tries to destroy the wedding photo hanging on the wall in his bedroom. The kids try to contact him but get no response, suspecting that he might have run away. Yang goes to his tutoring class and finds a substitute teacher, so he decides to visit Dongxing's house again, while Yang is talking to Dongxing, Officer Yi, and his daughter, Ximin. A classmate of Yang arrive at the house to register for tutoring lessons. Officer Yi is handling the investigation into Jingjing's case, and Ximin, who is second in the class behind Yang, feels competitive and blames her father for not signing her up for tutoring earlier. They first assume Yang is there for extra lesson, but Officer Yi later senses something suspicious in Dongxing and Yang's behavior. Dongxing later considers selling his house to pay off the kids but changes his mind after hearing the buyers gossiping about his wife's death. With no other choice, the kids withdraw the 30,000 yuan in the card for Poo's brother's surgery. After withdrawing the money, Liang reminds Poo to keep it safe and asks Yang to copy the video evidence onto another memory card. Liang plans that once they have enough money for the surgery, he will expose Dongxing's crime and turn himself in to the police, taking full responsibility for the blackmail. Meanwhile, Dongxing calls his bank and gets the address of the ATM where the kids withdrew money. After making another deposit into the card, he tracks the children as they return to the same ATM to withdraw the money. Dongxing follows them and eventually discovers the boat where the kids are staying. He finds the stash of money hidden on the boat but doesn't take it, as his plan is far more sinister. He intends to kill them to eliminate any witnesses. Meanwhile, Officer Chen finally retires. On his first day of retirement, he decides to take Liang to visit his father at the mental institution. Seeing his father in such a state leaves Liang devastated and speechless, shattering all the hope he had held onto. Officer Chen plans to take Liang back to the welfare house, but Liang tells him he needs a few more days in the area to finish something important. When Chen refuses, Liang runs away, stealing Chen's motorcycle keys so that the officer cannot chase after him. To gather enough money to lure the kids, Dongxing decides to take out a high-interest loan from a loan shark, with an exorbitant interest rate due in just 3 days. He's confident that within that time, he can recover the money and deal with the kids. Dongxing also prepares several cans of gasoline, planning to burn the boat where the kids are staying to kill them and destroy the evidence. He even checks the boat's windows to make sure no one can escape when the fire starts. Meanwhile, Wang Li, Wang Yao's younger brother and a gangster himself, visits his sister. Upon learning about Jingjing's death and Wang Yao's belief that Yang is responsible, he heads to the swimming pool, intending to drown Yang. However, Yang's father arrives just in time to save his son. With his sinister plan in place, Dongxing texts the kids, arranging a meeting at the bookstore to hand over the money. When Dongxing arrives, Poo signals to him that the other 2 kids are waiting upstairs. Shortly after, Officer Yi and his daughter Ximin also arrive at the bookstore and about to head upstairs. Recognizing them, Poo becomes nervous that their deal might be interrupted, so she quickly pretends to steal a book and runs out of the bookstore. Officer Yi chases her, but Poo manages to escape, leaving the book behind. This buys the other 2 enough time to complete their transaction with Dongxing. When Dongxing comes downstairs, he encounters Officer Yi and Ximin. To avoid suspicion and not be seen with Yang and Liang, Dongxing pretends to help Ximin pick out a book, giving the boys a chance to slip away. Meanwhile, Wang Yao asks her brother Wang Li to take care of Yang and hands him the keys to her husband's seafood warehouse. Officer Chen decides he wants to become Liang's legal guardian, and his custody application is approved by the welfare agency. Eager to share the news, he sets out to find Liang and tell him. That night, the kids decide Yang should take the money home to keep it safe. Dongxing secretly follows Yang, planning to ambush him and reclaim the cash. However, before he can act, Wang Li attacks Yang first. Liang and Poo, who are following to make sure Yang gets home safely, rush to help him when they see the assault. Liang smashes a bottle over Wang Li's head and tells Poo and Yang to run. Just then, Officer Chen, who has been searching for Liang, arrives and tries to intervene and protect the kids. In a fit of rage, Wang Li stabs Officer Chen in the abdomen. The elderly officer falls, leaving Liang filled with guilt. Liang immediately calls for an ambulance, hoping Officer Chen will survive the attack. Wang Li, still full with rage, chases after Yang, drags him into his car along with the bag of money, and drives to the seafood warehouse. Poo-poo, unsure of what to do, reluctantly asks Dongxing for help. Seeing an opportunity to retrieve his money, Dongxing agrees to follow Wang Li's car. At the warehouse, Wang Li forces Yang into a freezing room, dousing him with cold water to torture him. He calls Yang's father, demanding that Yang confess to killing Jingjing. However, Yang continues to insist on his innocence, crying and pleading for his father to come and save him. Dongxing spots the bag containing the 300,000 yuan inside Wang Li's car, so he sneaks into the cold storage area to steal Wang Li's car keys. Dongxing cuts the power, forcing Wang Li to leave the room and check the circuit. Taking advantage of this, Dongxing grabs the keys and is about to escape, but Yang begs him to turn off the water. In a rare moment of sympathy, Dongxing does so. At that moment, Wang Li returns and confronts him, demanding to know who he is. Dongxing explains that he is Yang's tutor and only wants to retrieve his money. Wang Li, however, shows no concern and kicks Dongxing to the ground, believing he is just a weak teacher. Little does Wang Li know he's underestimated the wrong man. Dongxing grabs a screwdriver and stabs Wang Li several times in the stomach, killing him instantly. Meanwhile, Yang's father is racing to the seafood warehouse to save his son. On the way, he urges Wang Yao to call her brother and tell him to stop, not realizing that Wang Li has already met his end. Dongxing, acting quickly, drags Wang Li's body into the freezer to hide it. He then rushes outside, uses Wang Li's car keys, and retrieves the bag of money. As Yang's father arrives at the warehouse, he finds Yang near freezing but still alive and rushes him to the hospital. Wang Yao stays behind, searching frantically for her brother. All she finds is his car with the keys still in the ignition. When she messages Wang Li, Dongxing replies using Wang Li's phone, pretending to be busy and unable to answer. At the hospital, Yang's condition improves, though his parents are deeply worried and stay by his side throughout the night. Meanwhile, Dongxing returns to the warehouse, intending to dispose of Wang Li's body, but the warehouse door is now locked. Wang Yao later comes to the hospital, begging Yang's father not to press charges against her brother. She promises they will apologize and make amends. Initially, Yang's father refuses, but then he approaches his son to convince him to drop the issue, leaving Yang feeling frustrated and angry at his father's decision. Suddenly, Dongxing enters the hospital room under the guise of visiting his favorite student, Yang. When Yang's dad leaves the room, Dongxing reveals his true motif. He asks Yang for the keys to the seafood warehouse, threatening that if Yang doesn't help him, his secrets might be exposed. Yang, feeling cornered, tells Dongxing that he doesn't have the keys, but that his father does. Dongxing, eventually ready to leave. Before leaving, he even hands Yang a registration form for the math Olympiad. Meanwhile, Poo-poo and Liang are unable to travel as planned to visit Poo-poo's little brother due to a massive typhoon that has delayed all transportation. The two kids decide to rent a room at a small inn near the train station for the night. The innkeeper, noticing that the two children have no IDs, charges them an ridiculous price. Liang, seeing that Poo-poo is unwell, reluctantly agrees to pay and books the room. However, while Liang goes to fetch some hot water, he overhears police officers at the inn talking about checking rooms without proper IDs. Panicking, Liang rushes back to the room and wakes Poo-poo to flee the room. With nowhere else to go, Liang and Poo-poo are forced to seek help from Dongxing, despite knowing that he is not to be trusted. Officer Yi visits Yang in the hospital to take his statement, and Yang chooses to lie, claiming that his father took him to the seafood warehouse the previous night, where he accidentally locked himself in while his father wasn't paying attention. Both Officer Yi and Yang's mother know he's not telling the truth, but Yang sticks to his story. Yang's mother becomes furious, feeling betrayed that her son would lie to protect his father, despite her own lifelong sacrifices for him. She criticizes Yang for showing loyalty to his father, who has barely been involved in his life and only recently reconnected after Jingjing's death. In response, Yang confronts his mother, reminding her of the day she demanded the divorce and how she was focused only on herself. Meanwhile, Dongxing continues to text Wang Yao, pretending to be her brother Wang Li, claiming that he is on the run and cannot take calls. Dongxing allows Liang and Poo-poo to stay in his living room until the storm passes, and Liang feels relieved hearing from him that Yang's condition is improving. Officer Chen, also recovering in the hospital, is weak but showing progress. He provides Officer Yi with a description of Wang Li for further investigation. 3 days pass, and the loan sharks arrive at Dongxing's home to demand their repayment, along with an extra interest, threatening to cause a scene at the children's palace if Dongxing refuses to comply. The kids feel guilty upon realizing that Dongxing took a high-interest loan just to pay them. And Poo-poo even bandages his wounds with a medical patch. Concerned for their safety with loan sharks now seeking him out, Dongxing decides to take Liang and Pupu to the home of his deceased wife's parents. He stocks up on essentials and medicines for them, touching the children with his unexpected kindness. Yang is finally discharged from the hospital. His father visits, and they reminisce about memories from when they all lived together. During this moment, Yang discreetly takes his father's warehouse keys for Dongxing. That night, Dongxing takes Liang and Pupu to meet Yang. Yang discreetly slips Dongxing the warehouse key while the others aren't paying attention. Dongxing takes the kids to McDonald's, where he begins to feel a parental bond with Pupu. The kids also start to open up to him. Later, Liang and Yang head to the restroom to talk privately. Yang suggests that Liang should get rid of the second memory card, but Liang replies that he'll think about it. As they step out, they find Dongxing washing his hands by the sink, possibly having overheard their conversation. Outside, Dongxing continues his sweet act and suggests that he'll set up a bank card for Liang to avoid carrying so much cash. However, the next day, instead of taking Liang to the bank, Dongxing drives him to an empty lot. There, Dongxing confronts Liang, accusing him and his friends of destroying his life, forcing him to borrow at high interest, and planning to turn him in. As Dongxing curses at him, Liang sits silently, denying the accusations. Pressed, Liang hands over a memory card. Dongxing throws him out of the car and rushes home to check the card, only to find it's empty. He's been tricked by the kids again. Enraged, Dongxing interrogates Pupu, who is genuinely clueless and terrified. As he yells, Pupu's asthma flares up, and Dongxing initially thinks she's faking it. Only when she collapses does he scramble to get her inhaler, but by then, she's already unconscious. Panicked, Dongxing calls an ambulance, yet hesitates to give his address when the operator asks. When Liang rushes back home, he finds both Dongxing and Pupu gone. Liang runs to Yang, informing him that Dongxing has kidnapped Pupu and requires they hand over the second memory card. At this point, Yang reveals that there is no second card. He never copied it as Liang had requested. Furious, Liang decides to report everything to the police. Yang calls Dongxing, pleading for Pupu's release and explaining that they don't have another card, but Dongxing, now distrustful, doesn't believe them. Upon learning that Liang is headed to the police, Dongxing calls Liang and threatens that if he does, Pupu will not survive. They agree to meet at the seafood warehouse to exchange Pupu for the second memory card. That evening, Yang goes to Liang and brings him a blank memory card to use in the exchange. Liang, still angry that Yang spoke to Dongxing about him going to the police, punches him in frustration. Meanwhile, Wang Yao grows suspicious over her brother Wang Li's disappearance. Sensing something terrible may have happened. The next day, Liang and Yang head to the meeting spot. Yang's father and Wang Yao also arrive to search for signs of Wang Li. Yang's father enters the warehouse first and discovers Wang Li's body, but before he can contact the police, Dongxing ambushes him. When Wang Yao enters, she, too, is intercepted by Dongxing, who strangles her to death. When Yang sees his father's car parked outside, he enters the warehouse but is quickly captured and tied up beside his father. Dongxing forces Yang to confess to his father how manipulative he's been. Meanwhile, Liang sneaks inside and, upon seeing the situation, texts Officer Chen for backup. Officer Chen, however, calls back, causing Liang's phone to ring. Hearing the sound, Dongxing gets out of the room to search around. Yang's father uses the moment to untie himself and his son. When Dongxing returns and sees them free, Yang's father attempts to fight him but is stabbed multiple times. As Dongxing leaves him wounded to continue his search for Liang, Yang's father frees Yang's hands, telling his son to live a good life before he dies. Yang finally confesses he was present when Jingjing died, but his father passes away before hearing him. Liang, hiding above in the rafters, seizes the chance to drop a heavy metal crate onto Dongxing's head, knocking him out. He then searches for Pupu. However, Dongxing quickly regains consciousness, locks the warehouse, pours gasoline around it, and prepares to set the place on fire to trap and burn Liang and Yang alive. Yang quickly realizes what happens. He tries to pull down a shelf to use as a ladder to escape through the ventilation fan, but it's too heavy for him alone. Liang arrives in time to help, and together they manage to push the shelf into position and climb out just as the police, alerted by Officer Chen, rush to the scene. Yang is given emergency care by the officers. While Liang quickly slips away unnoticed, when questioned by the police, Yang lies once again, putting all the blame on Wang Yao. However, Officer Yi senses something is off and decides to interview Dongxing under the pretense of asking about Yang's recent behavior. During the questioning, Officer Yi notices dirt and oil stains on Dongxing's fingernails. Dongxing claims he was simply working on his car, but Yi knows he's lying. In fact, the police has been suspecting Dongxing's involvement in his wife's and in-laws' murders. However, they are still trying to understand the true nature of his relationship with the 3 children. Liang then meets with Yang, convinced that Pupu has died and determined to seek revenge for her. He urges Yang to call Dongxing and set up a meeting, pretend to hand over the second memory card. At the meeting spot, however, it is Liang alone who confronts Dongxing. Before going to meet Dongxing, Liang had left the 300,000 yuan at Officer Chen's doorstep, along with a confession letter exposing Dongxing and admitting his own involvement in the blackmail. In the letter, he asks Officer Chen to use the money to cover medical expenses for Pupu's little brother. Back at the showdown, just as Dongxing attempts to stab him, Liang reveals he has already contacted the police, telling Dongxing he cannot escape justice. Realizing he's too deep in his crimes, Dongxing stops. In this moment, he reveals to Liang that Pupu was not dead. He had taken her to the hospital in time to save her life. Dongxing goes to see Yang, taunting him to stab him in revenge for his father. It's clear that Dongxing wants Yang to fall into the same cycle of hatred and darkness he's trapped in. Yang, driven by anger, pushes the awl into Dongxing's shoulder, though the wound is shallow. Just then, Liang arrives, intervening to stop Yang. During their struggle, Yang accuses Liang of being his greatest regret for allowing him into his life and his house that day. The tension escalates, and Liang stumbles off the boat's edge. Realizing that staying will only bring further turmoil, he lets go and falls into the water below, leaving Yang and Dongxing alone on the boat. As police officers arrive and order Dongxing to stand down, Dongxing, seemingly exhausted of life, advances toward Yang with the awl raised, refusing to stop. In the next moment, he is fatally shot by the police. Meanwhile, Officer Chen, summoning all his strength, pulls Liang from the water and gives him first aid, saving his life. Life slowly returns to normal, as if the dark chapter had never happened. Officer Chen officially adopts Liang, dedicating his retirement to spend time with his family and Liang. Chen also uses his own money to cover the medical expenses for Pupu and her younger brother. One day, Yang remembers the letter Pupu had given him during the summer, that she told him to open it after summer. As he reads, he finds Pupu's words filled with gratitude, thanking him and Liang for their help and hoping they can remain friends forever. She mentions that she never told anyone about Jingjing, not even Jiang. Yang regrets for failing their friendship. Finally ready to confront his own guilt, Yang decides to tell the police the truth about Jingjing's death.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like for more videos like this.